let's talk about protesting, right, in all of its different forms, and there are causes that we find despicable through to causes that we are unmoved by, right? And obviously I understand that the individuals are not exactly the same, but the idea of people thinking if I take to the streets I'll change everyone else's mind is just garbage. Normal, reasonable people I don't think are moved by it, like the idiots who decided to throw the soup at the Mona Lisa, or the neo-Nazis that ended up chanting on a bus. Now, again, I'm not saying climate protesters are neo-Nazis, so don't run off to the umpire here. But what I am saying is that when people take to the streets on Invasion Day and say things like decolonise, or when people take to the streets and say from the river to the sea, which obviously can be, not so subtly decoded, I just don't think normal people are moved by protest anymore. I think that when we see a poll or when we see, our mates saying something on social media, it might be slightly different. But Nicholas, I mean, you understand the power of protest. I understand free speech, meaning people have the right to association and free protest. But I think that when it's a nutter who wants to shut down the Sydney Harbour Bridge because unless we all turn the lights off, we're all going to die, or it's the person who marches on Australia Day saying that, that we must decolonise, or, this idea that this is kind of, unless you follow my extremist version of the world coming to an end in the next 6 months, then everyone must go, everyone must die, everyone must change. These people, they don't even understand where the bulk of Australians are, and they're not going to be able to do what they think they can do, which is to carry on like well-funded toddlers and just keep yelling at us until we give them a chocolate at the supermarket. It's not going to happen.
Well, look, this is such a fantastically interesting topic. I feel like you and I should almost do a lecture at the university on this. And
I'll be there. I look forward to the protests about the discussion of protests.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me begin by saying, yes, a protest is an extreme act, almost by definition. It has to be, doesn't it? Because you're sort of saying, look, the parliamentary process of lawmaking, the usual way we go about changing laws or regulations is not working. And so people take to the streets to have their voice heard.
It's just not what
by
they want.
definition, it's almost an extreme act. But that doesn't mean that the views that are expressed in protests are always extremist, and it certainly doesn't mean that protests can't be very, very effective as well. Now, I despise just as much as you do the idiots that, throw red paint on statues of Queen Victoria or act in a violent way. In fact, I get more angry about them than probably you do, Paul, because often, on things like climate action, that's something I really believe in. And when I see those idiots doing that, I know they're harming the cause. They're setting us back. So I get really angry about it. Having said that, I also think that there's been some examples of protests starting to have an effect. I do think that the Australia Day protest, just the size of them, in Melbourne we had 35,000 people out on the streets. Most capital cities around the country had tens of thousands of people. Like, it does start to seep into the national consciousness.
It's a public holiday and 1.9 million people vote Greens. Like, if they did it in the middle of a work day or a Saturday or something that disrupts their life. So I'm not saying they don't believe in it, but who is it supposed to convince? That's my issue, which is, Matt, is that I get it, right? Society's changed and things that we thought were absolute core values change sort of generation to generation, but the want here is that it should be changing day to day. And it's about whenever you get to that place, and look, again, I can be strident and strong on this show and gladly will be, but once you get to that sort of silly space in your head where unless you agree with me, you should go, right? I.e., for your race, for your religion, for your part of a modern Australia, or because you're doing damage to the climate. Those people don't convince anyone. They don't convince anyone.
Well, yeah, I think it hurts the cause. Yeah. You saw the protests on Australia Day at Parliament House. They clearly want to change the country, not change the Australia Day date. And that's the people that want to change the date are associating with those people. And I just want to make, though, two very quick comments on the Louvre incident, Paul. Number one, I was thinking, why don't they ever throw soup at modern art? And perhaps that's because you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. If they threw soup at modern art, how would you even know? Secondly, somewhat more concerning to me is not the protesters. They're sort of idiots and they're doing harm to their own cause. This must be sanctioned by authorities. Because I was there for the first time at the Louvre 6 months ago. Wonderful place. Amazing art.
Where's the security guards?
There's no way you
tackling
can
them?
get there and that close to that without the authorities assisting and being in cahoots, and that's more concerning than the protesters themselves.